Ukraine just unleashed a missile storm that blacked out Russia's sky. Then hell scorched the earth. That line is built to do one thing: make you feel like you're watching the final chapter. Because blacked out the sky sounds like Russia's air defenses went blind. Hell scorched the earth sounds like entire regions were erased. And your brain naturally wants to turn that into a clean conclusion. This changes everything. But here's the truth about headlines like this. They're usually describing a real event, with movie trailer language layered on top. So in this video, I'm going to give you something you can actually use. You'll get the verified baseline of what's been reported about Ukraine's recent strikes, the framework to understand what blacking out the sky could realistically mean in modern warfare, 3 signals that tell you whether this is a temporary shock or a lasting shift, and 3 plausible paths from here. And I'll tell you the mistake people make with these stories that turns them into free distribution for propaganda. Here's the mini payoff early. The most important question isn't, did Ukraine hit Russia hard? The important question is whether Ukraine is evolving from hitting targets to changing the air picture. Because hitting targets is tactical. Changing the air picture is strategic. Now let's ground this in what we actually know. Over the last few months, Ukraine has been pushing deeper strike capability in ways that have been widely reported. Long-range drone raids, missile strikes, and attacks on Russian military-industrial targets and air defense assets. There have also been recent reports around Ukraine using domestically produced long-range cruise missiles and striking deep inside Russia, including claims around hitting missile production facilities. At the same time, Russia has been intensifying its own aerial assaults on Ukraine, with large mixed waves of drones and missiles showing up in reporting, big enough that it forces Ukraine to constantly adapt its air defense and its infrastructure protection. So yes, the missile storm framing is tapping into a real trend. The air war is getting bigger, denser, and faster. But blacked out Russia's sky is the part that needs decoding. Because blacking out the sky is not a single thing. It's a bundle of possibilities, and people who don't understand those possibilities get manipulated by the most dramatic interpretation. So here's the framework. Whenever you see a headline that sounds like total dominance, ask 3 questions. 1. Are we talking about an action or an outcome? 2. Are we talking about a local effect or a national effect? 3. Are we talking about temporary confusion or lasting degradation? Because the internet loves to treat a local, temporary effect as a national, permanent outcome. That's how the story goes viral. Now let's translate blacked out the sky into what it can realistically mean. In modern air warfare, blacking out the sky usually points to one of 3 things. First, saturation. That means so many objects are in the air, drones, missiles, decoys, multiple trajectories, that the defender's detection and engagement chain gets overloaded. Not because they have no defenses, but because defenses have limits: sensors, tracking capacity, interceptor availability, reaction time, and command and control bandwidth. When the sky gets crowded enough, some threats get through even if the defense works well. Second, suppression. This is the part people don't talk about enough. If you want strikes to land, you don't only target buildings. You target the ability to see, radars, communications, command nodes, air defense sites, not always to destroy the entire system, but to create a temporary gap, an opening window where the defender's picture is degraded. Even hitting or disrupting a few key nodes can create confusion, especially if the defender is already stressed. And there have been recent reports of Ukraine striking Russian air defense radars and systems in occupied areas and near the front, which fits into this broader pattern of trying to create openings. Third, deception and electronic noise. Modern conflict is not clean. Signals can be jammed, tracks can drop, objects can merge on sensors, false signatures can exist, weather can affect detection. And when a defender is dealing with clutter and uncertainty, their confidence drops, and confidence is the key. Because air defense isn't just shoot, it's detect, track, identify, decide, engage. Friendly or hostile. How confident? How fast? If confidence collapses, mistakes and penetrations become more likely. So, blacked out the sky can mean a window of degraded clarity, not the entire country went blind. That distinction matters. Now let's talk about hell scorch the earth. Because that phrase is another classic manipulation tool. It tries to make you imagine devastation at a scale that's rarely confirmed in real time. What we do know from open reporting patterns is that both sides have been striking energy and industrial infrastructure, and those attacks can cause major secondary effects: fires, power outages, disrupted logistics, and cascading knock-on damage. But that is not the same as everything is destroyed. In war, the difference between a huge fire at one facility and a region is flattened is everything. So the way to stay grounded is to separate spectacle from strategic change. Explosions are spectacle. Strategic change is behavior. So here's the key question. Did these strikes change what Russia can do tomorrow? That's how you measure impact. Now let's get into the 3 signals you should watch if you want to know whether this was a big moment or just a loud moment. Signal 1, repeated success, not one-night success. Anybody can land a shocking strike once. The question is whether similar strikes keep landing over weeks. If the defender adapts quickly and closes the gap, the event is dramatic but contained. If the attacker keeps getting through in a consistent pattern, then you're looking at a shift in the air contest. Signal 2, target mix. If the strike pattern looks like random terror, it often spreads fear but doesn't necessarily change capabilities. If the strike pattern looks like system targeting, radars, command nodes, air defense sites, logistics hubs, production facilities, then you're seeing a strategic approach aimed at changing what the defender can sustain. Recent reporting about deep strikes on military-industrial sites and attacks on air defense assets suggests the target mix is not just symbolic. Signal 3, operational behavior changes afterward. This is the most underrated signal because it doesn't require secret intelligence. You watch what changes. Do we see Russia repositioning air defenses? Do we see changes in patrol patterns? Do we see changes in how they protect key facilities? Do we see new emphasis on hardening, dispersion, and redundancy? If behavior changes, it tells you the strike caused real pressure, not just a media moment. Now I want to break the pattern for a second because this is where most people get lost. People watch war like sports because it's psychologically easier. Scoreboard thinking. Winning and losing. Big moments. But modern war, especially the air war, doesn't end because one side looked dominant for 12 hours. It evolves through adaptation, which means you cannot judge the outcome by the loudest night. You judge it by what each side becomes over the next month. Now let's talk about what a missile storm actually implies in practical terms. If Ukraine is truly throwing larger combined waves, missiles, drones, decoys, then the goal isn't only hit the target. The goal is to force the defender into expensive decisions. Air defense is costly. Interceptors are finite. High alert posture burns crews. Constant readiness creates fatigue. Fatigue creates mistakes. So even if some objects are intercepted, the attacker can still win by forcing the defender to spend resources and attention. That's why saturation matters. It's not only about what gets through, it's about what it costs to stop it. Now, none of this means Ukraine has total dominance. That's not how air contests work. Russia still has significant capability. Ukraine still faces immense pressure. Both sides are in a high-tempo contest where each adapts. So anyone selling you "this is over" is selling you a feeling. Now let's talk about the 3 realistic paths from here, because this is where you stop being a consumer of hype and start being a reader of probabilities. Path 1. This was a loud night, and Russia adapts quickly. Air defenses get repositioned. Procedures change. More redundancy is added. Target hardening increases. Ukraine still strikes, but the penetration rate drops. In this path, you get spikes of dramatic footage, but not a sustained collapse of defensive clarity. Path 2. Ukraine's deep strike capability is becoming consistent, not perfect, not unstoppable, but consistent enough that Russia has to divert meaningful resources to defense and repair. This doesn't mean Ukraine wins tomorrow. It means Russia's cost of sustaining the war increases. And when costs rise, strategic options narrow. Path 3. Escalation in the air war increases volatility for both sides. Bigger waves, bigger defenses, more electronic warfare, more saturation, more chance of miscalculation. This path is the most dangerous, because when skies get crowded and decision windows shrink, accidents and unintended outcomes become more likely. And that's how conflict expands even when leaders claim they want control. Now, I promised you the biggest mistake people make in moments like this, and I'm going to give it to you clearly. They confuse spectacle with conclusion. That's the mistake. They watch a dramatic wave of strikes and they demand closure. So they accept the closure offered by the headline, "Russia's sky is blacked out." But blacked out is not a conclusion. It's a metaphor. And metaphors are how narratives get injected into your brain without evidence. So here's the discipline that keeps you grounded. Don't react to the first framing. Track convergence. Real events become clearer over time. Reporting tightens. Details stabilize. Independent confirmations appear. The pattern becomes visible. Fake or exaggerated narratives mutate. They get more absolute, more emotional, more certain, even as evidence stays thin. So watch whether the story stabilizes or mutates. Now let's address the human piece, because it's easy to get desensitized when the language is "hell scorched the earth." Real people live under these strikes. Real infrastructure fails. Real families lose heat, light, and safety. So the responsible way to talk about this isn't to cheer destruction. It's to understand what the air war is becoming, because what it's becoming is the future of conflict. Cheap offense pressuring expensive defense in dense environments where clarity is the scarce resource. And that brings us to the clip-worthy line that explains why this story spreads so fast. In modern war, the scariest weapon isn't always the missile. It's the loss of clarity. Because when clarity drops, everything gets more dangerous. Strikes land, defenses misfire, and mistakes become deadly. Now I want to end with a question that actually matters. If Ukraine is shifting toward a strategy of saturating and degrading the air picture rather than just hitting targets, do you think that creates a sustained advantage? Or do you think Russia adapts quickly enough that this becomes a cycle of spike, repair, spike, repair? Drop your take in the comments. And if you share anything about this story, don't share the headline. Share the framework. Action versus outcome. Local versus national. Temporary confusion versus lasting degradation. Because the people who win the information war aren't always the people with the biggest missiles. They're the people who can make you believe the war is already decided.